Hello and welcome everyone. I am Jesse, Head of Technology at Alumio and also today's host. I would like to warmly welcome you all to the Experience iPaaS webinar episode 2 Experts. This comes after our Experience iPaaS Beginners webinar that was held 2 weeks ago. During that webinar, we demonstrated Alumio's iPaaS and demonstrated how to create basic integrations. The video for the Beginners webinar is now available on our YouTube channel, so if interested, feel free to check it out. Also, if you are new to Alumio, or you have the feeling that you're missing some context, it's really recommended to watch that webinar, as today is more focused on the advanced features of Alumio. So now we will finally start with the Experience iPaaS Experts webinar to give you an in-depth demo of using the advanced features of Alumio's no-code interface. So with today's Experts webinar, we plan to broadly cover some of these topics to supercharge your integrations. So we will be looking at filter previously stored entities, we will do some advanced mapping, and also take a look at James Bond. And while we do this, if you have any questions about what you're seeing on the screen or anything else that you're wondering about, please send them in the comment section of either YouTube or LinkedIn, and we will try our best to answer them. So yeah, to have the session as interactive as possible. However, before we dive into the webinar, I believe introductions are in order. So with me, I have Michiel van Veldhuizen, who is a product consultant at Alumio, and he will be showing you the platform, together with Johan Moormann of MemoICT, which is one of our partners. And I would like to invite Johan now on stage to introduce himself and his company.
Let me unmute first. Hi, I'm Johan. I'm founder and owner of MemoICT. Since end of 2020, we are working with Alumio. At this moment, we have 2 people fully integrated into Alumio and working on Alumio every day. Yeah, and I hope I can show you good stuff of Alumio.
Great, I'm sure you will. Thanks, Johan. Happy to have you on board.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
Great. Yeah, before we dive into the webinar, I think it's good to introduce Alumio a little bit. So yeah, Alumio has over 200 active integrations. We have more than 20 years of experience integrating all kinds of systems like an ERP, e-commerce platforms, ePOS systems, warehouse management systems. Yeah, anything you name it, we can integrate it. We have a global partner network of companies that build integrations using the Alumio iPaaS. And also we have a global presence. We are active in 7 countries, such as the Netherlands, Sweden, USA, UK, Germany, and Indonesia. With our extensive experience, we built the Alumio iPaaS to help create, monitor, and manage integrations via a user-friendly interface without any code. But without further ado, we will now dive into the webinar of today. So I would like to hand over the screen to Michiel, our product consultant, who will be kicking off today's session.
Okay. So I haven't fully introduced myself as well. I will do that shortly as well. I'm Michiel Veldhuizen, product consultant, so working at Alumio, mostly responsible for showing like these environments, doing like demos, getting started sessions, onboarding sessions, webinars, etc. So today I will have like 2 short things which I will show as like more of an advanced step, which we noticed that not everyone is using, which is actually very easy to implement, mainly the first one. And afterwards we will have more of like an open discussion between like the 3 of us, so me, Jesse, and Johan, and we're gonna do it more like a podcast kind of style with like embedding also like whatever you have within the comments and that kind of stuff, and therefore we can actually talk to like about the platform on a more advanced level and see where it goes from there. So for the first part, I'm going to show you the filter previously stored entities, which is a very good functionality within Alumio to not have sending a lot of data to system B. So you know Alumio is sending things from system A to system B. However, if you keep sending the same information and system B every time says like, already seen it. Well, a very simple feature for that is the filter previously stored entities. So in examples here, I have a route that goes products from Akinio to Shopware, and you can see that I have run this multiple times and I get the exact same information every time. If I would run it once more, let me go to the incoming configuration. We have the get Akinio products. If I run this once more, we can see in the task overview that in the current timestamp, we have 5 more of those. If I keep running this over and over right now, every time it would add 5 more. Very simple step to actually check that it starts. Oh, wait, I already have that set up. Perfect, simple. So in this case, let's see, it was not there. We would have to add it ourselves. We can simply say filter by previously stored entities. And we can say that, for example, I had it in this storage just before. Let's put it in this storage. I know, let me check that this storage is actually empty. If we open that from here, we can go to the entities. We can see that this storage is empty. Perfect. So what this does is it first checks, like, is the object that you are trying to send, or the object that just came in, is that already within the storage? If not, it will send it through, but it will also store it in the storage. So this thing does two things. So therefore, it will also, the next time it will do it, you will also see that it can check based on what it was stored previously. So if we save this right now, if we run the incoming once more, we can actually verify that the storage gets filled. We can also see that on the minute of 06, we can go to the task overview. We see that once more on 06, there are more tasks created. However, if I run this once more right now, or twice, or thrice, then we can see task overview. We still have a bunch of messages, but we only have the data sent in once because there's nothing changed to the data. Will we go to Akinio right now, change something in the data? Or let's say we remove one from the storage. We removed number 03 from the storage, and we run the incoming once more. We can see from the task overview that if we refresh this one as well, we can see that 03 came in because we deleted that one. And that's a very simple way to like boost your integrations in that way, to just only send updates to system B. Another implementation, which I would like to show right now, is enriching your data by doing multiple API calls within the entity transformers. This is very useful. For example, let's say you pull in product information, but you also have to pull in the stock information, and then you also have to pull in the information about the prices. You can map that and send it elsewhere. Or in some cases, it's necessary to say, like, okay, if you want to update an order, you first have to create a customer or check if the customer is there. If the customer is there, you don't have to do anything but use that data. If the customer is not there, you have to create that customer. Based on the information, you get the information of the customer back, and so forth. You have like a process of doing multiple API calls to actually do a full integration. So a simple example I can give for that is within here. So these are our entity transformers, which you might be familiar with. Here we have some customer data. And from here, we can have, like, there is another endpoint which we can use. Let me see if that is actually predefined. I think it is. So for that, we can use an HTTP transformer. So with an HTTP transformer, we can do another request to another API call. But the issue is, let's say we would do this API call right here. We would remove all of the data that's within here because of the HTTP transformer. It takes a new object as its full entity and its new truth, and therefore it starts working with that. However, we can also use a merge transformer, which allows us to put the response that we get rather in the full object in a object that we can write ourselves. So we can write, for example, a new key. And then with a placeholder notation, which you might be familiar with, we can write the full object in there. Within this, we can go for an HTTP transformer. In this case, we have a very simple endpoint, which is /user ID and a post. For this moment, we're not going to make it dynamic yet. We're just going to keep it as is. And if we write this, all of the information that comes from here will actually go to the new key. If we run this, we can see that at the bottom, we have a new key that is emptied. That is something going wrong. Do we have default client? Do we have the demo client set up here? Okay, I'm not entirely sure what goes wrong. I would like to call in Jesse. Maybe you see right away what goes wrong. Maybe I'm not allowed. Oh, I see what goes wrong. I already see it. So in this case, I see what goes wrong because I'm trying to push the full object in there. So I'm trying to put all of the information that comes from this object. I try to push it within the parameters. So that is not going to work because then it would post everything there. If I run it once more, we can see that we have the blog posts, and we can see that we have user ID 7 in there. So that is a common mistake that you might also make, like you're trying, like, okay, I did an API call, right? But you actually put everything in the parameters here. But let's say we want to make this dynamic, because currently we're getting user ID 7, but we're looking at a user ID 10. We can say user ID, and then we can go for the placeholder notation once more, and we can place in an ID. So that would be this ID over here. Then we can also remove that from this part. Once we run this right now, if we run the test, we can see that we have user ID 10, user ID 10, user ID 10. If we change the input, for example, to very simply test this to 7, we can also see that we're now pulling everything from 7. So that's a very easy way to test like the how to check like, okay, you want to enrich data, what kind of data comes in, what data comes out. And therefore you can do multiple API calls. This could also be a post somewhere, it could be a patch somewhere, it could be a get as in this case. And therefore you can do many kinds of different steps to do API calls during your entity transformer. So now I would like to add in Johan as well to talk a little bit more about advanced mapping, James path, and other things, and just keep it more of like an interactive podcast, showing each other like, okay, you can do this with data. How would this work? How would that work?
Yeah, thank you, Michiel. So maybe before we move on, I would like to know, Johan, is this those two examples now shown by Michiel, is this something that you commonly use when building integrations? I think we started with this filter previously stored entities.
Yeah, the filter is of course very useful if you don't want to overload your system. There are cases where you don't use it because you always want to update all information that is coming in. So, and for example, Akinio has a change set, so you only get the changed products. So yeah, I don't use it on Akinio, but it's a great example on how to filter data that is coming from other systems.
Okay, cool. So you would say that if a system offers this functionality natively, then it's not needed so much, but in case, for example, when you're doing like an XML integration or like CSV, then it's actually really useful.
Yeah, then it's really useful because you limit the data that is transferred to the new system. You limit if you have a CSV or a XML with 20,000 products in there, for example, and there is only an update on 5. Yeah, then why do you want to update 20,000 products if the data is the same? So yeah, I think that the filter is really useful. And
very
a great
sensible.
addition.
And what about this merger transformer in combination with the HTTP transformers? Is something that you commonly use, or is it something that
we use it on almost every transformer? You always want to enrich data. Sometimes you want to send data and want to return the response. So we use it for that too. So if you say, okay, for example, the system wants to know if the client wants to know if the data is pushed and want to set a status on a product or something like that, or get the ID back of the newly created product and get the ID back in the other system. You use a merge transformer to send all the data that's in the node, a result node or a body node, and then get the response and put that response back into the system that is sending the information, just to keep IDs and mapping up to date. So yeah, that's a really useful one.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And in this example, we are doing an HTTP call, so a REST API call. But is this also available for other types of connectivity, such as like SOAP or GraphQL, or am I limited to doing API calls?
REST API you can actually put any data transformer in here. So you could go for the SOAP transformer and put the whole SOAP request there. You could also, for example, do a get entities or all entities from storage, or anything GraphQL you just mentioned. So there's a whole bunch of options that you could get some data, and then you just write it towards the new object that is mentioned here.
Okay, great. I think this is a cool and very useful functionality for all Alumio users. So thanks for showing this, Michiel. So maybe Johan, you would like to take over and show us how the advanced mapping works?
Yeah, that's something we usually solve with James path. I don't know how long, but I think a while back I discovered James path. Jesse told me about James path in Alumio. Started investigating and found the usability of it. I almost used it in every transformer, just like the HTTP transformer, to filter out data now, instead of going into a node transformer and use a filter. For example, yeah, this example isn't the. I have another example waiting on my other environment. Let me copy that and use it into a new entity transformer. So we have some example data where in this case, we have a product description that's in 2 languages. It's in Dutch and in English. And you want to set up a base product where you only need 1 language. Normally, in the old situation, I would go into a node transformer, get the locale, copy the data into that locale, and then copy it into the new product. But with a JamesPad transformer, you can solve that in one go just by selecting the base language. Yeah, let me show you.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Looking forward to seeing it, Johan.
Yes, so we make a data transformer with a value setter. And in the value setter, there's also the possibility to add code. For this case, I will call the result node with description, because it's a product description. And let's do a base English translation. So your base product is English, and your translations will be added later. So you need a JamesPad, and JamesPad is, of course, through jamespad.org. You find all the information there. You can test your codes there. For this example, yeah, we use it a lot, so I almost know it by head. If we go into the standard nodes, it's values, so we need in the values nodes the product description, and then we want to find the right data, so the one with the English translation. And in this case, you use a question mark, which the key you want to check, and normal code double is equal to, and you want to do your locale you're looking for in the equation. Sorry, I had to think about. So if you run the test now, you see that there's a result with a description with only the English data. So if you want to say, okay, but I don't need the whole node and I only need the data, you say, okay, put the data behind it, you run the test, and you only have the description in English, and you have your base product selected at this point.
Instead of
going to, yeah, I think it's easy. It's easy to use, and it's easy to get a base translation. And further on, you go to a node transformer, get every language out of it, and make a translation into this. One recommendation, if you have this and you don't have, if I go, for example, I want to use French, and you run it, it won't be, it will be empty. Will be an empty node.
Yeah, so based on that, you can also do a certain filtering, like, okay, it's empty, and then you can work on.
Yeah, you can work with it with that too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's also possible to provide like a fallback value. So right now we get an empty string, but maybe
you can use your double pipes. In this case, it's an empty string, or you put in empty, or you even can do, I think, a complete new node where you say, okay, if English is not there, you can do Dutch, or you can do French, or you can do the language you have. But mostly we use it when it's empty and check later. If it's empty, then do other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It seems we also have our first question already. I think we just want to embed like the questions like right on the spot. I think it's also good to keep it interactive that way, if you guys agree.
Yeah, it's okay with me.
Okay, so the first question, if we can put it on the screen as well so the other people can read it. Perfect, exactly like that. So it's more about the filtering, the first part of the show. Is it possible, is there a check possible to make sure we only filter out if it successfully went through the first go? So what you could do for that, like initially it will be filtering like based on the incoming configuration. So you're not entirely sure yet how the outgoing configuration will work, and therefore you're not entirely sure yet how it will be processed. However, it is possible to check, for example, to make another route, to check like, okay, everything that came in as a filled task on a specific route, you can actually remove all of those objects from the storage then. So that is like kind of a workaround I could think of right here at the spot. Maybe you guys can see like a different way to do this kind of integration. But
Yeah, so I think
it's
good to know that it really depends on why your task could fail, right? So what could happen is that your destination system is not available, so it's down. So what you then can do within Alumio, you can set up automatic retries. So we can say, okay, if a task fails, we want to retry it up to 5 times, and we want to keep 30 minutes between every retry. And then if a task doesn't hit the other system because it's down, then at a later point, it will be exported anyway. But it could also happen that you have a data issue. But if you have a data issue, you have to fix it in the source, and then your object will change. So then the next time it's being read, then Alumio will recognize again that it has changed, right? Yeah, most of the cases you don't need this workaround as Michiel calls it. But yeah, but if you do, you have the ability to manually or automatically remove entries from the cache. So even if it didn't change, it will be picked up again.
Yeah, I think in this case you could use a merge transformer or HTTP transformer, where you first check if it's successful, and if it's successful, then write it to the storage.
Yep.
That would be an option too.
Yeah, that's also an option. Okay. Back to the also, if there are any other questions, please let us know. That's how we can keep it interactive, and that's also how we make a session that's based on like what you guys would like to see. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure we can fill hours and hours with Alumio and talking about like advanced integrations. But it's also nice to see what kind of like questions you guys have, and we can discuss that here at the spot, and then we just go from there. But until then, the word is back to Johan again.
Okay, and let me check. Another example on JamesPath is, for example, filtering. What Jess already mentioned. This is the example I prepared for now. So if there are questions, please feel free to ask them so we could discuss further how to do this.
Okay, so maybe like to talk about like other things, like what would you say is mostly like a struggle point of like integrations where you feel like, okay, this is kind of like the advanced kind of maneuvers that you had to make, that at the end of the day you're like, wow, this is cool that we like managed to do something that was actually difficult. Like, yo, maybe you could give like an example of that, or maybe Yes as an example of that.
Yeah, I'm thinking, but
I think JamesPath opens up a lot of opportunities, right? So now you gave an example of filtering, but I think JamesPath also offers you some functionality. So you have some way to do some coding. So I think you can also do it from the Alumio mappers, obviously. But for example, with JamesPath, you can do a maximum functions, minimum functions. You can calculate arrays. So I think it offers quite some
opportunities
next to what we offer out of the box.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the cases we did with JamesPath, for example, was the receiving system needed a total of an order, but the sending issuer didn't calculate it. So you have only the order lines with prices. And if you go there, turn that into an array and you use the sum function of the James path, you could use that. So if you want to recreate that, it's a really a struggle, which is relatively easy to solve. I can show you if you like.
Yeah, and that would be good to see if you can give like a quick example of that.
Yeah, if we create a.
I think there's order data in one of the entity transformers as well, if you would like to use that.
Yeah, but if we have order lines, for example, it's an object. So, and we have order on order lines. It's an array, and you have one where price is $5.99 with a dot, of course. You have another one. And it's $7.99. For example, in this case, you could at first you have to copy the values or move the values what you like. And you say, okay, we need a result total price, and that will be like this, and that should be filled with order lines dot price. So if we run this one, there will be a price with an array, and if you after that say, okay, you need a value setter where the key is result total price, and this one is result sum, just like almost every coding language you can use sum results dot total price. I have not too many, and that one, and we have a total price just like that with two lines of code. So instead of going through everything and then try to calculate it, this is the easy way. I don't know if I didn't find a way yet to say, okay, just get the price out of the order lines and then do
a so you can even make it with one line, and I can tell you how.
Yeah, please show us.
Yeah, okay, I will show you.
Can the screen be switched to yes? So that's the cool thing about these interactions, because we can also learn something from each other. Like the three of us use Alumio a lot, but also for us, it's like we still have like process of like, oh, we could actually use this or we could use that.
Yeah, I think that there are many ways to solve one issue on Alumio, and in that case, there's no good way. Just like coding, there's
there's many ways that lead to Rome, as we say.
Yep.
Yeah, indeed. So if I'm not mistaken, you're able to see my screen, right?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, we can see the screen right now.
Great. So if we want to do it in one line, what we can even do is we can directly use the value setter, and we can do we can introduce a key like order total. And here what we are going to do is essentially the same. So we have the sum function, right?
Yeah.
But here we will say lines with brackets star dot price. Sorry,
order lines, yeah.
Yeah. So now if we hit run test, it will get all the prices and do a sum on them. So if I
knew it was possible, only I didn't figure out the brackets yet.
Yeah. So it's something you need to know, right? But
Yeah.
So like this, you can do it in one line. So I think this JamesPot makes it really gives you a lot of options to really supercharge your integrations. But
Yeah,
I also
exactly.
would like to express that you don't need JamesPot to do this, right? So what we can also do the calculation within an Alumio function. So instead of using the JamesPot library, we can also use a operator mapper here, and we can do like an addition, and we will have the same result. So maybe you like this more because it's a bit easier to understand. But if you're more like a developer, more a technical person, then it's very good possible to use the sum functionality.
Exactly. So yeah, that's very interesting to see, because like you said, there's a lot of ways that something can work with, or something you can work with, but it's also very functional to look at, like, okay, what kind of people are we working with? Is there someone that sees like a lot of lines of code and could be like, okay, I see this transform and have absolutely no clue what's going on here. So then it would be useful to maybe go more for the Alumio functionalities within there. And otherwise, if you're more like a coder, like background, and all of the people working there are also more coders at background, then you can go for those kind of steps, which is really cool to see that both are like accessible that way.
Yeah. So, and I think also maybe good to show now that I have the screen anyway is so sometimes what you have to do is you have to map some fields, right? So maybe you have this input data and you have to map it to the other system. So maybe if you watch the beginner webinar, you think, okay, I can do a move using a pattern, and I can say, okay, slideshow needs to be not slideshow. And then maybe I need to change the alter field, and I'm going to use a key mapper for this. So I'm going to use a key accessor within the not slideshow key that we now newly introduce. And I'm going to say, okay, we have a dictionary map, and we're going to say, okay, alter needs to become customer, something like this. So as you can see, this transformer will get quite big, quite fast, right? Because I'm going to have a lot of steps. I'm going to move a lot of fields. I'm going to remap a lot of fields. So I will get a very big transformer where I will lose the readability, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So usually what we recommend to people, instead of using all these steps, which are really useful, but try to keep your transformers compact, especially when it's just a simple moving of a field or maybe renaming a key, to use the value setter. To use a value setter for this. And what we usually do is we introduce a new key that's called like a result, and we make this an object. And within this object, we basically put the desired format. So the format it needs to be before we send it to the end system. So maybe we have like a customer name field. Maybe we have like a customer job title field. And maybe we have like ordered lines, something like this. So now what I can do is I can just basically fill this with information from my current data object. So what I can do, I can use this placeholder notation that Michiel mentioned. So here we can do, okay, slideshow.alter. Here we can do, okay, slideshow. We take the title. And here we can do a reference to the order lines, like this. And this way I can fill the entire object. And this way I only have one single field that contains my entire mapping. And now when I run test, we can see that we have our results here, down here. And then we end up posting this to the other system. So especially if you have like a big data set and you have to do a lot of actions, then this is actually quite the preferable way, right? Because this way you then can this way you have a single step in which you do all the mappings, and maybe you have some more advanced mapping. So we can also expand it even more. So I can add another configuration, and I can say, okay, I want to add a order total field to the result, like this. And here we end up applying the same principle as we did with the JamesPot filtering that I just showed you, like this. And now when I hit run test, we also have the order total now added to the result object.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we used it. We used it in a case where we set the address like this, and then we had the fallback value with the billing and the shipping address. So if there wasn't a shipping address, we would use the list mapper with an inherit, and then with a fallback value on, for example, name and street on billing and shipping address.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think also you can do it from here, right? So you can provide like
Yeah, you do it like that, and you say, okay, if that's not there, so billing address is leading, and if it's not, then you go to shipping address, something like that.
yeah, and then you can even put a third value, right? So if nothing is found, then we just provide like an empty array. So now if I think if I hit run test, oh, it fails. What am I doing wrong?
You
So
have
it's also good to see that we have some.
You have brackets around.
Okay, so it fails because we don't have a price. So let me see if I do it like this. So okay, so this is maybe a downside from using JamesPot, because what does it say?
The errors aren't really clear.
Oh wait, I'm expecting here this field to exist, but it doesn't exist. So I probably have to result.ordered lines. And now, yeah, okay. So now it will be correct. So now if I re-add the sum, it will likely be nothing. But yeah, indeed. So it gets it. You need some time to get used to it. But I think once you get it in your fingers, so apparently I do not have these skills, but once you get it in your fingers, I think it's a very powerful tool.
Yeah, I'm still learning too. So on JamesPot, there's a lot of issues and a lot of things you can do with it, just by a little piece of code. And if you know that, then it's really powerful.
Yeah, so I think it's for everybody interested in learning more about JamesPot. It's just a official library. So if you go to jamespot.org, you find the full explanation of the JamesPot specification and also how you can use it with some examples. And Alumio has implemented this, fully implemented the JamesPot library. So yeah, feel free to go to jamespot.org and check it out.
Yeah, sort by is a really great one too.
Yeah, so maybe that's something you can show.
Yeah, of course.
Johan. And I also see we have a question in between.
Yeah, let's put that first, and then I will show the sort by.
Sure.
Okay, so Robin has a question. If there's any way to get the transformers from code itself and not having to go through a UI. Yeah, so that's a good question. I think I'm still sharing my screen. So yeah, essentially we also offer an SDK, which you can use to build your own components, but you can also move all the configurations that you built to a repository. So if I take a look at one of those configurations down here, so if I go, for example, to this HubSpot products, I can export this configuration. So we have the export option, and it gives you an JSON file. So let me just go ahead and open this JSON file here. And here we can see that every configuration that I do through the UI is essentially just a JSON configuration file that instructs Alumio, okay, it's this type of configuration, like an incoming or a transformer, an outgoing, or maybe a route. And we can all put these all together within a repository. We can add them to the Alumio platform, and we can also do like releases. So we have the version control as you mentioned it. And it's also very common with our partners. I'm not sure if this is something that you're actively using, Johan, but more our agencies that also, for example, do webshop development. Sometimes they link their Magento releases, for example, to an Alumio release, and they utilize.
Yeah, we are currently working on connector packages. So, for example, Akinio to a base product will be a package we will develop for ourselves. So, if you have a Akinio product, then put in the transformer, or put in the package, and the base product is there. And then next steps will be to make those packages for other systems, like Shopware is one of the first, because originally we are a Shopware agency, so that will be our first point of interest, of course. So there will be a Shopware connector package then.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. I think we answered Robin's question. So thank you for the question. So then I would like to hand over the screen back to Johan. And
yeah, we were going by sort by.
Yeah, indeed.
I will just use price again and put in some random values here. So the same value setter, we don't need the copy, of course, now, because you want to sort the sorted result. So it's relatively easy with a sort by. This is a good case because now I have to look into the examples, and there are a lot of them. So if you go and say, okay, I want to sort by, and if it's okay, you get multiple examples, and it's just like filters, multi-selects, nested filtering, selecting. I don't know why it's not only giving me the sort by, but here you have the sort by and a nice testing. So you have sort by, we need contents, that is the object you want to sort, and the field you want to sort by. In this case, we want to sort by, and it's order lines. And we want to sort by price. And now we have an exception. It's not finding the order. Of course.
Yeah, so it's quite strict.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's sorted at this point. So just by putting it in there in one line, you can sort it. We had it for one client that wants the order lines by order line ID, sorted by order line ID. And if you work with some transformers, sometimes it's getting mixed up or it's getting confused, and then you can fix it by doing something like this.
Great.
I think so. For now, there are not a lot of questions.
Not a lot of questions, but we show a lot of options. So maybe we cover everything that people would like to see.
I hope so.
That's always very good. Other things you could think of, like because we showed like sort by. Are there other things that you can also do, kind of like queries for like searching information and sort of stuff? Or is it limited to more of like the data restructuring kind of types?
You mean the James path?
Yeah.
And in what way? You like search by key or search by value, or?
Yeah, something like that, like searching for like, well, specific keys you pretty much already shown for like the what was it, for the languages? So that's pretty much sorting by keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it actually covers most things you would need then. Like I can't really think of something right now which I would say like, okay, is it maybe possible?
What do you think about filtering nodes? Like in Akinio, you can add 150 attributes, and sometimes if you want to communicate them to, for example, your e-commerce solution, you don't want all 150 attributes into your e-commerce system.
Yeah, exactly.
So normally I would use a list mapper with an what is it called?
Key intersect or something, probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so as well.
So you have the values is normally for so that's a great feature where you can relatively easily maintain your connector on top of your connector. So at first you say, okay, copy every value from Akinio to a temporary values, and then filter only what you need. And if you say the client says, okay, but I want this property or this attribute to go to my e-commerce system as well, it's just as simple as typing one line, and the rest of the transformer is getting everything into place to move that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something similar I use for that, which is slightly different. Let's say you have an order, and then you have to do order lines, and within the order lines, there's a lot of information that you don't really need. Another option, like creating the result key, you can also create like a line result key, and then afterwards, like when you make the result key, you can copy everything from the line results within the result key, and therefore you also can like store all of the information that way. So that's like, again, like multiple ways lead to Rome, and with that you have like another solution, and then it's like, okay, which one is more manageable for like the use case, or which one is more user friendly you could look at, and that's kind of the ways that the interactions can be built. So a lot of things, like in the end, we see with everything, like everything is possible, but it's also like, besides just being like a solution, it can also be a solution that's more optimal or more readable or more manageable, and therefore you can choose for like different ways of doing like certain integrations. And I think that's also the interesting part about this webinar, is talking about things for us, seeing like, okay, but this can work, but also this can work, but also this can work. And then you can actually, if you know like what's like offered like throughout the whole system, you know which one you can like, okay, so this looks nice, but it's not as manageable, or this one works, but it's like, yeah, it's one of those struggling things. If we want to add something, you can always see like, okay, within these, those are the kind of questions we would like to see here. And then we can see like, okay, we can discuss with the three of us, like maybe you have a solution that you would say like, okay, it's working completely fine, but is this the nicest way of putting it, or is this the most manageable way of putting it? And I think it's very nice if we can get like maybe a few of those questions in here, if there are anyone out there. If not, also no worries about that. But those are like nice discussion points where we can see like, okay, it works, but can it be nicer? Can it be put in a more manageable way?
Yeah, so I think what's good with Alumio is that you don't make a deep commitment, right? So you're quite easily to prototype and refactor stuff. So instead of committing to one way and you cannot uncommit from that, you have the ability to just keep changing parts of your integration, optimize where needed. And I also think that Johan, you and I, we have worked together quite a lot, and we are still learning from one another, right? Because there's just so many options.
Yeah, it's really great to look into transformer of other guys. Okay, how do you solve different things? Like a very common thing, where to put your transformer, on the incoming, on the route, or on the outgoing. Everybody has a different take on that. For now, we have a ticket open that a webhook we created on the Alumio takes too long to answer. Yeah, that means, okay, we did it on the route, but now we have to change and some transformers to go on the outgoing. So keep the incoming data as simple as possible and as quick as possible, and then go into, because when the webhook is initiated by a platform, it will take the complete route transformers. So not only the incoming, but also what's on the route. So you have to change things to the outgoing and adapt data there.
Yeah. So it takes some time to get an understanding of the architecture of Alumio. So, and indeed, it's also very valuable to take a moment and think about it, because as you say it, you can apply those transformations at multiple stages, and they also serve multiple purposes, right? Because I think what we showed in the previous webinar is when you have this data integration that has an incoming configuration and an outgoing configuration, and those together, they make a data route. But that's like a one-to-one connection, but we can also do a one-to-many. And if you are going to have one data source, but publish that data to multiple systems, then you really need to think about where and when you're going to apply certain transformations. But I also think, Johan, you said it's very valuable to learn from one another, right? And we have this discussion forum that's available for everybody. So to all the watchers and users of Alumio, I would like to invite you over to support.alumio.com, where we have our community forums. And feel free to ask your questions there. And have an interactive discussion with the other users of Alumio and learn from one another.
Yeah, I think it's really great, and we are working with, I think, 1.5 years with Alumio now, and still learning every day new ways, and the great improvements Alumio makes. I'm a developer, and in the beginning you're like, okay, I can solve this with 3 lines of code. Why do I need to make a transformer with 3 or 4 steps or 5 steps? But in the end, it's so much easier to maintain. It's so much easier to read than to code. That there are a lot of advantages of using Alumio over own code.
Yeah, we noticed that a lot with customers as well, that it's very easy to train someone to understand like the logging, for example, within Alumio, and just check in like, okay, I have this SKU, it didn't go through. Can I check if there's a task made, if it failed, if it finished, maybe even error logging, anything like that. And then you can send right away like, hey, I got this and this error. Some of the systems actually give like good errors within that as well, that you can see like, okay, system A is very strict on the zip code, system B is not. You try to send it from system A to system B and it says like, sorry, zip code is not correct. Those kind of simple messages are very easy to find within Alumio. Whereas, yeah, if it's all code based, it's more difficult to train someone like, okay, where's the logging? Where can you see what's happening? How does the data look like at which point? And like Johan probably also has seen like over the last like year and a half, but even longer before that, Alumio is also, it's an active system. So we're like constantly doing updates. If we get feedback from customers or anyone like from our people internally, like, oh, we should have this or we should have that, we're very open to those kind of feedback as well. Of course, we cannot process everything, but there's a lot of things that if we see like, okay, this is very good for the platform, we definitely look at it. And then from there, we do like different changes. So for example, like the transformers that you see right now with having like the input, the result, making it look smoother, making it look nicer. If I'm not mistaken, it's even relatively new to be able to transform like that or to test the data on the spot like that right there. So there's a lot of changes that are made, and there's a lot of more good changes to come. So we're definitely looking forward to that.
Yes. Yeah, me too. I'm working more with Alumio, and getting to know Alumio better is really great.
Yes, great. I think we have no more questions in the chat, so we're also almost out of time. So Johan, is there anything else you would like to share?
No, I really want to thank you that I could be here, show everything.
Well, we would like to thank you for making the time and being here.
Of course, always.
And also thanks to you, Michiel. I think both of you, and you showed some really valuable insights. I think it's good to see what's all possible, but I think we haven't even touched the surface of what else there is possible, right? So I'm sure we will get a continuation of this webinar at another moment. But
great.
Thanks to you both. Special thanks to you, Johan, and also to you, all the watchers. We enjoyed hosting and having this webinar today. If there's any questions that weren't answered today and you would still like to get a reply, then here you can find our contact details. So feel free to reach out in case you require some assistance or something was not clear. But for now, I would like to thank you all and have a nice day.
Yeah, have a nice day all, and talk to you again.
Bye-bye.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.